Counter-Narrative News, bringing you daily news today on Thursday, the 18th of May 2023. Going straight to Palestine and Jerusalem, the white supremacist colonial settler regime of Israel has conducted a provocative, as it does annually, its so-called quote-unquote Flag Day, celebrating the colonial takeover of the West Bank and Gaza and East Jerusalem in the 1967 war. The colonial takeover of Jerusalem, and particularly East Jerusalem, has not been recognized in international law and has been largely rejected. This provocative Flag Day, seeing tens of thousands of vicious far-right colonial supremacists marching through the mainly Muslim quarters of the old city, is an open provocation, and especially just after the some 33 Palestinians who were killed by Israeli airstrikes just in the last week in the veritable open-air prison, a concentration camp that is the Gaza Strip, which houses some 1.8, around 2 million Palestinians in a small strip of land. Previous Flag Day provocations and other provocations in the Old City in Jerusalem and around the holy site of the Al-Aqsa Mosque has drawn resistance from the resistance factions, not only within Palestine and in Gaza and the West Bank, and broadly within quote-unquote 1948 Palestine, that is known as quote-unquote Israel, but also the resistance groups in Syria and Lebanon who have conducted resistance operations in defiance of these provocations. Going over to Brazil, the state oil company Petrobras has been blocked from a potential drilling project at the mouth of the Amazon River in the Amapá state by the environmental agency of Lula's Workers' Party's government there. This points to a split, really, among forces and movements like Lula's on the left. On the one hand, we have what is actually the right-wing policies of a kind of obsession with growth, no matter what environmental cost to the land. This is in the context, obviously, of wildly developing, devastating impacts from colonial capitalist-induced climate change across the world. Staying in Brazil, on this day, back in 2020, Joao, Pedro Mantos Pinto, a 14-year-old, was killed by Brazilian police in the city of Rio. To attempt to cover up their disgusting crime, they tried to move his body some 20 miles away and claimed he was killed in gang-related issues. This also pertains to something quite important in the region here in so-called Latin America, but in general in the Global South movements towards the left, in that if it's not a revolutionary movement to overthrow the state, then the movements, even if they reach a governmental level, stay within the framework of still a colonial shell, in which right-wing and now far-right administrations are returning back into power, as we saw with Bolsonaro. And Bolsonaro's return is very likely after this administration of President Lula, which raises a whole bunch of really serious, challenging strategies that have to be fulfilled and at least discussed. Continuing on the theme of On This Day, back in on this day in 1980 in South Korea, in the city of Gwangju, workers rose up, took weapons from police stations, and fought against the dictator Chun Do-hwan, a close ally of Western neo-colonialism there. We have to remember that there's still some 40,000 US troops on the border on the southern side of the so-called demilitarized zone between South and North Korea. Also on this day, back in 2021, and this is quite relevant to just the last week's Israeli airstrikes and massacre in Gaza, the Palestinian people on this day back in 2021, that's the 18th of May, conducted a massive strike against the massive Israeli airstrikes that resulted in hundreds of deaths in Gaza again at that time. That was Counter-Narrative News, bringing you daily news. Please continue to support us. Many thanks for taking our subscribers way above the 500 mark. Please do continue to make Counter-Narrative News a central source of daily news, research, history, culture and music, with a loyalty to the historical and ongoing struggle for black liberation and resistance, working class liberation and struggle, and the struggle to smash colonialism and neocolonialism worldwide. Many thanks.